If you're watching this video, you are either the proud owner of a GA5 machine or you're considering purchasing one. This is an instructional video on how to assemble the GA5 machines. Let's begin with the table. This is the GA5 table. Yours may look exactly like this one, or it may vary slightly in color. For instance, I'm using this tabletop to show you what the unit looks like unassembled. But I already have a table fully assembled and the tabletop is slightly different. So as you can see, these two tabletops are a little different. The assembled one is painted on the inside rim and the other one is not. Sometimes the tabletops can be different colors. Most of the time they will be a white or an off-white color. Sometimes they can be a really light grayish color. So it's perfectly normal for your tabletop and other parts to vary from the ones in this video and online pictures. First, what you want to do is notice the holes on the table and know what they are for before we begin putting it together. The first 3 holes pointed out is where the motor will be mounted. This oval-shaped hole is where the belt comes through, connecting your GA5 to the motor that will be mounted underneath the table. These other 4 holes are where your nice brand new GA5 will be sitting. This hole here is for the chain that connects the pressure foot lift to one of the pedals on the floor. So now we know more about the table and where everything will go. Let's look at the stand that connects to the table. Don't freak out, this is actually very easy right here. Right now you'll see a total of 7 parts. First, I'm going to take this pedal out of the pile. We will deal with this at a later time. You will actually have 2 of these pedals. One connects to the clutch of the motor, turning it on and off, and the other will connect to the pressure foot chain, allowing you to lift the pressure foot up and down hands-free. Also, these pedals sometimes come in different colors, designs, and sometimes even shape. So again, don't worry if your pedals look different from mine. There are a few different versions of these tables, slight differences in color usually. But no matter, they all work well and do the exact same thing. There's really no controlling which one you get, because when we get them, all we see is this. Yep, a brown box. So technically, to us, they all look the same, until you open it. So now we've removed the pedal. Let's take these 4 leg pieces and put them together. Find the 2 that match. You can tell by the extension of the legs and the extension of the top part of the leg. Each will face the same way when you put them together. So now, technically, we are left with only 4 pieces to work with. Let's add the bolts and this rectangle-shaped plate to the legs to keep them together. The part where the plate goes in will be in the inside of the table. Where you install the bolt will be the outer part of the table. This allows you to adjust the tabletop height. I recommend letting the top part sit all the way down on the bolts and tighten them. After installing 2 bolts on each leg, take this back assembly and connect it to the back part of the legs. 2 bolts hold this on, and the nut is already conveniently attached to the legs. After that, the legs will stand up on their own, making it much more easier to handle. So now is a good time to flip the legs upside down, so we can install the bottom plate that will be holding the spot for your pedals. This part uses a flat square-shaped nut. This will go underneath the bottom plate while we install a washer, lock nut washer, and bolt through the top. Do this on both sides, leaving it loose enough to adjust the plate back and forth. This way, later on, you can adjust the position of the pedals for better operation. Now we can install both pedals. This L-shaped bracket will hold the pedals to the bottom plate. Make sure the holes on the pedal face towards the back of the table. So let's install the L bracket on the inside of the pedal. Use a washer, lock nut washer, screw, and nut to fasten this down. Now you will want to flip the table upside down so we can install the legs. You see the motor already attached to the table? Let's just pretend that's not there yet. We'll get to that in a little bit. This part is important. We want to make sure the legs get installed in a spot that will support the tabletop evenly and be out of the way of the motor, belt, the chain for the pressure foot, and the GA5. On this one, I used these measurements. This next part wasn't filmed because I couldn't find the drill. While doing this, make sure not to lose any tools. It could make it more difficult to complete. After aligning the table up, you will need to mark the screw holes with a black marker onto the table. Then move the legs out of the way and pre-drill the 4 holes that will hold the legs to the table. It is very important to pre-drill the holes. If you don't, most likely the screws will break halfway through. I know, I've done this. I skipped the pre-drilling before. After that, put the legs back into position and screw in the wood screws that came with the table. I recommend using a drill, but since technically this table was already assembled, I'm using a screwdriver. Plus, the drill is still MIA. Now, we can flip this bad boy into the upright position. At this point, we will add these screws that came with the motor. There should only be 3 that came with the motor, so we can't go wrong. Put all 3 into the table at these points. For the sake of this video, we will pretend that this is a hammer. Make sure you hammer it down with a few small hits. After this, we will need to flip the table back upside down and put the motor over the screws. Install the washer, lock nut washer, and nut. Hand tighten them down. Make sure the clutch wheel is lined up with that oval-shaped hole on the table. That way the belt won't rub on the table while it's rotating. That's another mistake I've made before. This video is to help you not make the same mistakes I have learning how to put this together. After you make sure this is aligned, go ahead and tighten down the nuts snugly. Don't tighten them all the way. If you notice, the mounts are only rubber, so just tighten them until it's snug. Now connect this rod to the clutch of the motor. Use this bracket to fasten together the rod from the motor to the rod from the pedal. When you step on the pedal, it will engage the clutch on the motor, causing the GA5 to rotate. On the motor, you can control the RPMs with this switch. You can control the direction of the motor with this switch, forward or reverse. Make sure the motor is off and at a full stop before touching this switch. It could damage the motor if you put it into reverse while it's still running. 2 screws hold the motor switch on. Pre-drill these holes before installing the screws. So now that our table is magically in the upright position, let's install the GA5. Place the GA5 head onto the table, aligning the 4 holes of the machine with the 4 holes on the table. You should have 4 of these 2.5 and 3/4 screws, 4 washers, and 4 nuts. Put the screw through the top of the table. Install the washer underneath, followed by the nut. Tighten down. Put the belt onto the wheel of the GA5. On the motor, there is a gold bar with 2 nuts on it. Loosen this top one all the way up. This will allow the motor to move up so you can slide the belt onto the wheel. The belt does not need to be tight. If you over-tighten the belt, it won't run. The best way to adjust the belt tension is to loosen the bottom nut until the motor just uses its own weight to apply tension to the belt. That's all the belt tension you'll need. Hand tighten the bottom nut until it just touches the motor mount. Then bring the top nut all the way down and wrench it down gently. Now let's install the bobbin winder. This we need to line up with the belt. We will keep it roughly 1/8 of an inch from the belt. We don't want the bobbin winder engaged at all times, just when we need to use it. Again, pre-drill your holes for this. We will install 2 wood screws into the pre-drilled holes. Tighten them down in the bobbin winder's adjustable screw holes. These holes allow you to make minor adjustments to the winder without drilling new holes. So now, let's add the chain to the pressure foot control lever. Drop the chain down through the pre-drilled hole in the table. Attach it to the second foot control using this metal bar that came with the table. You can adjust the hook on the chain higher for a better fit. Now your GA5 should be fully operational. Plug it in, turn it on, and you're ready to get started.